My mother laughed in my hospital room and said my daughter could take out loans like a normal kid. My father stood at the foot of my bed and nodded toward the window where my nephew's brand new Tesla was parked like a trophy. Then he looked at my daughter and said, "At least one kid in this family might actually become someone." My daughter heard him. She was standing beside the chair with my water cup in her hand. 17 years old, straight posture, honor roll student, too stunned to move. I had an IV in my arm, a heart monitor clipped to my finger. I had worked myself into exhaustion. And while I was in that hospital bed, my parents had emptied $187,000 from my daughter's college fund to buy their golden grandson a car. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I smiled. Then I said one sentence. "You're going to put every dollar back. Now let me take you back. My name is Caroline. I'm 46, divorced, and I live with my daughter Emma in a quiet suburb outside St. Louis. We have a brick ranch with a narrow front porch and flower beds I never quite keep up with in July. It is not a glamorous life, but it is a real one. Mortgage, property taxes, grocery lists on the refrigerator, college brochures spread across the dining table. I work in hospital administration, operations and staffing. That means most people only notice me when something goes wrong. For the past few years, I've been taking on more than I should. Extra shifts, weekend coverage, budget meetings that turn into 3-hour arguments over overtime. I told myself it was temporary. Everything hard is temporary when you're a mother. That's the lie women tell themselves while they're quietly carrying everybody else. Emma has known about college since she was old enough to read, not because I pushed it like a religion. Because I wanted her to have a door open that no one could close on her. I started saving when she was born. Then more seriously after the divorce. A little at first, then a lot. I skipped vacations, drove my car long past the point where the air conditioning deserved retirement, took a second consulting job for 2 years doing billing audits for a surgical practice on weekends. Every extra check went into her education fund. Not because I'm noble, because I know what it feels like to have money decide your future before you do. My parents never understood that kind of planning. They like visible success. Cars, watches, big birthday parties. My older sister Denise is exactly like them. Or maybe she learned from them so well there's no difference anymore. She married a man who talks loudly about business opportunities and has somehow never been fully employed. Their son Tyler has been the center of my parents' universe since he was born. Tyler is 17. Same age as Emma. He has never had a part-time job. He has never had to earn anything long enough to value it. He is the kind of boy who says, "I deserve nice things," without hearing the ugliness in that sentence. My parents call him the pride of the family. They say it casually, like it doesn't land anywhere. Like Emma isn't right there hearing it. Like I don't remember every time they said something softer but similar. Tyler has presence. Tyler knows how to carry himself. Tyler thinks bigger. Emma gets different words: sweet, steady, practical. Practical is what people call girls they don't plan to invest in. Emma never complained. That's one of the things that still hurts me. She made it too easy for them. She got the grades, stayed out of trouble, tutored middle schoolers after class for spending money, quietly built a life in front of people who kept rewarding noise. I should have seen sooner how deep the favoritism went. But family systems are like old wallpaper. You stop noticing the pattern because it's been there too long. The college fund was in a custodial education account, locked down, structured carefully, protected. My parents knew it existed because I had once made the mistake of mentioning it over Sunday lunch. My mother had smiled and said, "Wow, you really think Emma needs all that?" I laughed then. Not because it was funny, because women are trained to laugh when they sense disrespect, but don't yet want to fight. My father had added, "She can always take loans. That's what most kids do." I remember saying she won't have to. He looked at me like I was being dramatic, like wanting better for your child was indulgent. A month ago, I hit a wall at work. Not emotionally, physically, chest tightness, blurred vision, the kind of fatigue that makes your own body feel rented. One of the nurses in my department took one look at me and said, "You're sitting down now." I ended up admitted overnight for observation. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, blood pressure through the roof. Emma came straight from school, still in her sweatshirt and sneakers. Her hair was damp from rain. She sat beside my bed and tried to look calm. "I'm okay," I told her. She nodded, but her fingers kept twisting the strap of her backpack. My parents arrived that evening. Not worried, not really. Curious. My mother brought flowers too fragrant for a hospital room. My father stood near the window with his hands in his pockets like he was visiting a colleague. Emma got up when they entered, offered my mother the chair. My mother didn't take it. She set the flowers down and said, "Well, at least now maybe you'll slow down." "No, how are you?" "No, that must have scared you. Just criticism disguised as concern." I was too tired to engage. Then my father glanced out the window and smiled. "You should see Tyler's face," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. My mother laughed. A real laugh. The kind people make when they're proud of themselves. "We gave him his birthday present early." Emma looked over. "What present?" My mother turned to her. "A Tesla." Emma blinked. I stared at them, not fully processing. "With what money?" I asked. My mother looked at me as if I were slow. "From that school account." The room changed temperature. I pushed myself upright despite the ache in my chest. "What?" My father shrugged. "It was just sitting there." My mother smiled again. "Your daughter can take loans. That's what normal kids do." Emma didn't move. I could feel her beside me still as a held breath. I looked from one parent to the other. "You touched her account." My father's expression hardened slightly. "Don't be dramatic. We're family." I stared at him. That money was for Emma. He glanced at her then. Not warmly. Assessing. At least one kid here might actually become someone he said. Emma looked down. That was the moment. Not the theft. Not the Tesla. That sentence. The way it entered her face and rearranged it. I felt something in me go cold and precise. My mother kept talking. Something about opportunity. About Tyler's future. About how boys need confidence. I stopped listening. I reached for Emma's hand. She gave it to me immediately. Small, cold, steady. I smiled. Not because I was calm, because I had become clear. Then I looked at my parents and said, "You're going to put every dollar back." The room stayed quiet after I said it. Not tense, just suspended. Like everyone had stepped into a space where something irreversible had been spoken, and no one was quite sure who would move first. My mother blinked. Then she laughed again. Not loudly. Just that dismissive little breath she used when someone else was being unreasonable. "Caroline," she said, "you're in a hospital bed. Let's not make this dramatic." I didn't answer. My father crossed his arms. "You're overreacting," he said. "It was family money." Emma's fingers tightened in mine. Family money. That phrase again. The kind that floats around until someone actually traces where the dollars came from. "That account belongs to Emma," I said. My voice came out calm. Even. More even than I felt. My mother tilted her head. "Oh, please. You act like we robbed a bank. You emptied a custodial education fund." My father waved a hand. "Technicalities." Emma spoke then, quietly. "Grandpa, you took my college money." The room shifted again. Her voice had done what anger couldn't. It made the theft visible. My father didn't look at her. He kept looking at me. "You're raising her to be soft," he said. "Life isn't fair." Emma's hand loosened, not because she agreed, because she was absorbing something, learning, the kind of learning a child never forgets. My mother reached over and patted the blanket near my leg. "Listen," she said. Tyler needed something to get him started. "A car," I said. "A Tesla," she corrected. Emma finally let go of my hand. She stepped back toward the chair by the wall. The backpack strap slipped off her shoulder and fell to the floor. Neither of my parents noticed. I did. I always notice when Emma withdraws. It's quiet, orderly, like a door closing carefully so no one hears. "Did Tyler ask for it?" I said. My mother smiled. "Well," we hinted. My father added, "He deserves a head start." Emma picked up the backpack. Her face had gone very still. Head start at what I asked. My father frowned. At life. I watched him for a moment. Then I nodded once. "You're going to return the money." My mother sighed. "You're obsessed with this. It's theft." She laughed again. "No one is going to arrest grandparents for helping their grandson. That's not what happened." My father leaned closer to the bed. "You want to sue your own parents?" His tone carried the same disbelief he used when Emma told him she liked physics more than cheerleading. "You think that's normal?" I looked at him for a long moment. "Normal isn't the standard I'm using." He straightened. "You always did have a superiority problem." Emma spoke again. "Mom worked really hard for that." My father's head turned toward her. "You should be grateful we're teaching you how the real world works." Emma's shoulders moved slightly. The kind of motion someone makes when they absorb a hit they didn't expect. I looked back at my father. "The real world has laws," I said. My mother rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop. You sound like a lawyer." I spoke to one. That sentence landed differently. The air shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough. My father's jaw tightened. "When before I came back from admissions." Emma looked at me, surprised. So did my parents. Because what they didn't understand was this: I had known something was wrong before they walked into the hospital room. 3 days earlier, while I was still at work, my phone had buzzed during a staffing meeting. An alert from the bank. Large withdrawal. The number had looked wrong. $187,000. At first I thought it was fraud. Then I saw the transaction code. Authorized access. By a listed guardian. My parents. I didn't call them. I didn't panic. I called the bank. Then I called the attorney who had helped structure the account 15 years earlier. A quiet man with silver hair and the patience of someone who explains the same rules to different families every week. He listened for about 30 seconds. Then he said, "They did what I told him the amount." He went silent. Then he said something that had stayed with me. "Caroline, that money legally belongs to your daughter." I already knew that. But hearing it said out loud had sharpened the edges of the situation. "If they spent it," I asked, "then they'll have to replace it." My mother was still talking. Something about Tyler's college prospects. My father had started pacing near the window. Emma stood beside the chair holding her backpack strap with both hands. "You called a lawyer," my father said finally. "Yes." "And what did he tell you?" "That custodial education funds are protected." My mother's smile faded slightly. I kept going. "He also told me something else." My father stopped pacing. "What? If the money isn't returned, I said the court will require it." The room went still again. My mother stared at me. "That's ridiculous. It's law. You're bluffing." "No." Emma spoke softly from the chair. "Mom," I looked at her. "Yes." Her voice was careful, almost apologetic. "Did they really take all of it?" I nodded once. Her face didn't collapse. That was the part that hurt most. Emma had learned long ago not to expect protection from that side of the family. My father exhaled sharply. "You'd really drag your parents through court, if necessary, for a college fund, for my daughter." My mother's voice turned colder. "You always favored her over the rest of the family." I stared at her. Of course I did. The honesty startled her. Because she's my child. No one spoke for several seconds. Then my father said quietly, "You're tearing this family apart." I shook my head. "You already did that." Emma stood up then. She walked back to the bed, picked up my water cup, held it out to me. Her hand wasn't shaking anymore. "Mom," she said. "Yes." "Are we going to be okay?" I took the cup, met her eyes. "Yes." And across the room I saw the first flicker of uncertainty in my parents' faces. Because for the first time since they walked into that hospital room, they were starting to understand something. This wasn't a family argument. This was a consequence. The hospital discharged me the next morning. Not because I was completely better, because my blood pressure had come down enough that they trusted I would go home and rest. Rest. That word felt unrealistic. Emma carried my bag out to the car. She moved carefully like the space around me had become fragile. The sky was pale gray, Midwestern spring, the kind of morning that looks calm even when the air is still cold. We drove home in silence. Emma watched the road ahead. I watched her. She looked older than she had 2 days earlier. Not physically, emotionally. There are certain sentences children hear that quietly move them forward in age. My father's words had done that. At a stoplight, she said, "Are they really going to have to give it back?" Yes. How do you know? Because the law says the account belongs to you. She nodded slowly, then looked down at her hands. I didn't know they hated me that much. I reached across the console and touched her arm. They don't hate you. What is it then? They value the wrong things. She absorbed that. The light turned green. Neither of us spoke again until we pulled into the driveway. Our house looked exactly the same as always. Mailbox leaning slightly to the left, tulips pushing up through the front garden, life continuing like nothing had shifted. But something had. Inside the kitchen, Emma set my bag on the chair. I sat at the table. The same table where we had spread out college brochures for 2 years. MIT, Purdue, University of Illinois. Engineering programs circled in red pen. Emma poured 2 glasses of water. She sat across from me. "You knew before they came to the hospital," she said. "Yes." "When 3 days earlier?" She nodded again. "You were really calm. I was really angry." "You didn't look angry. That's because anger doesn't solve problems." Emma thought about that. "Lawyers do sometimes." My phone buzzed on the table. A message from my attorney. I opened it. Short, direct. They had already contacted the bank. The withdrawal had been flagged. Because custodial accounts are monitored differently than personal accounts. The bank had sent a formal notice. My parents had 10 business days to return the funds. Otherwise, the case would move forward. Emma watched my face. What did he say? They have 10 days. To give it back? Yes. She nodded slowly. Then she said something that surprised me. Tyler won't give up the car. I leaned back in the chair. You're probably right. Grandma won't make him. Probably not. Then what happens? They'll have to find the money somewhere else. Emma's eyes moved toward the window. Across the street, Mrs. Langley was walking her dog. Normal life again? I don't want them to go to jail, Emma said quietly. They won't. How do you know? Because they'll pay. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Tyler really liked that car. I looked at her. Emma. Yes. That's not your problem. She nodded, but she still looked uncomfortable. Empathy is a strange inheritance. Emma had too much of it for people who had shown her none. That afternoon, the first phone call came. My mother. I let it ring. Emma glanced at the screen. You're not answering, no. It rang again. Then again. Voicemail followed. I didn't listen. Not yet. An hour later, my father called. Same result. The phone buzzed 3 more times, then stopped. Emma watched quietly. "You're serious," she said. "Yes, about everything. Yes." She nodded once, then she stood up. "I'm going to work on my physics project." The ordinary words filled the kitchen with something steady again. I watched her walk down the hallway, back straight, hair pulled into a loose knot. Still a kid. Still my responsibility. I opened the voicemail then. My mother's voice came through immediately, angry, sharp. "Caroline, this lawyer nonsense needs to stop." Pause. "You're embarrassing the family." Delete. Second voicemail. My father this time, lower voice, controlled. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Pause. "Call me back." Delete. The third message was longer. My sister, Denise. Her tone was colder. "You've always been jealous of Tyler." I leaned back in the chair and listened. "You couldn't stand that Mom and Dad believed in him." A soft laugh. "And now you're trying to ruin his birthday because your kid isn't special." Delete. I sat there for a moment, not angry, just tired. Then the fourth message came through. A voice younger, entitled, "Tyler, Aunt Caroline, you're being ridiculous." He sounded annoyed, not worried. "Grandma said you're trying to take my car away." Pause. "That's not happening." Another pause. Everyone knows Emma was never going to do anything big anyway. The message ended. I stared at the phone. Across the hallway I could hear Emma typing. Keyboard clicks, homework, normal life. Tyler's voice echoed in my head. Everyone knows Emma was never going to do anything big. I stood up slowly, walked down the hallway. Emma's door was open. She looked up from her laptop. Yes, I leaned against the doorframe. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why do you want to study engineering?" She smiled slightly. "Because I like solving problems." I nodded. "That's a good reason." She tilted her head. "Why no reason?" I walked back to the kitchen, picked up the phone, and finally listened to the message that mattered. The one from the bank. Because that message contained the one thing my parents had never expected. A deadline. The deadline changed the tone of everything. Not immediately, but slowly, like pressure building in a sealed room. 3 days after the bank notice, my father showed up at my door. No call. No warning. Emma was upstairs finishing homework when the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. There is a certain rhythm to my father's knock, impatient, heavy. I opened the door. He stood there in the driveway wearing the same brown jacket he'd had for 15 years, hands in his pockets, face tight. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside without answering. He walked into the living room and looked around. The same furniture, the same bookshelves. Emma's science fair ribbon still hanging on the corkboard near the kitchen. He sat down slowly. "You've made your point," he said. "I'm not making a point. You're humiliating us." I leaned against the armchair. "You withdrew $187,000 from your granddaughter's account." His jaw tightened. "We didn't think you'd go this far." I didn't respond. He looked toward the hallway. "Where's Emma upstairs?" He nodded. Then he lowered his voice. "Tyler's been driving the car to school." I watched him carefully. "And the attention's been good for him." Of course it had. A 17-year-old boy in a brand new Tesla doesn't need to try very hard to get noticed. "You're not getting the money back that way," I said. My father exhaled slowly. "You're forcing your parents to choose between their grandson and bankruptcy." "No," I said. "You made that choice already." He rubbed his forehead. "You always twist things." "I document things." That irritated him more. My father prefers emotional arguments. Facts slow him down. "Denise is furious," he said. "I imagine she is. She says you're trying to destroy Tyler's future." I almost smiled. A car isn't a future. It's a start. It's a luxury. He leaned forward. "You could stop this. I could." "Then stop." shook my head. No. Silence stretched across the room. My father looked older suddenly. The confidence he carried into every family discussion had thinned. "You've always been stubborn," he said. "I've always been consistent." He looked at the table where Emma's college brochures still lay stacked. "You really believe she's going to do something with all that?" I followed his gaze. "Yes." He snorted quietly. "Denise says Emma doesn't even like attention." "That's true. Tyler thrives on it." "That's also true." He leaned back again. "So why not let the kid have something nice?" I looked at him for a long moment. Because the answer was simple. But it had never landed with him before. Because nice things shouldn't be built on someone else's sacrifice. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked around the room again, like he was seeing it differently now. "Your mother's upset," he said finally. "She thinks you're punishing us." "I'm correcting you. That's the same thing." "No, it isn't." The front door opened behind him. Emma stepped in from the backyard. She had been studying on the patio, her laptop tucked under one arm. She stopped when she saw him. "Hi, Grandpa." Her voice was polite, measured. My father turned. For a moment his expression softened. Then he noticed the distance in her posture. "How's school?" he asked. "Good." She set the laptop on the table. "I'm applying for summer research at the university." My father nodded vaguely. "That's nice." Emma didn't elaborate. She rarely did when she sensed someone wasn't truly interested. My father stood up. "Well," he said, "your mother and I will figure something out." "That would be wise," I replied. He walked toward the door, then paused. "You're really willing to tear this family apart over money?" I looked directly at him. "You already tore it apart over favoritism." He held my gaze for a second, then looked away. Outside, his truck started with a rough engine noise. Emma sat down across from me. She watched the driveway through the window until he pulled away. "Did he say they're giving it back?" she asked. "No." "Then what happens next?" I folded my hands on the table. "They have 7 days left." Emma nodded slowly. "And Tyler, what about him?" "He won't give up the car. That's not our decision." She leaned back in the chair. "I think Grandma likes watching him drive it." "That sounds like your grandmother." Emma sighed. Then she opened her laptop again. College application essay still on the screen. "What are you writing about?" I asked. She hesitated. Then she turned the screen toward me. The title read, "Resilience and Quiet Work." I felt something tighten in my chest. Not exhaustion this time. Pride. Emma noticed the expression. "Is that okay? It's perfect." She nodded. Then she started typing again. Across town, somewhere in a school parking lot full of ordinary cars, Tyler was probably leaning against his Tesla, telling his friends about how he deserved it. What he didn't know yet was that every mile he drove was counting down toward the moment someone would ask him for the keys back. 7 days pass faster when people are avoiding a decision. My parents spent the first 3 pretending the problem would disappear. No calls, no visits, just silence. The kind of silence people use when they hope pressure will fade if they refuse to acknowledge it. But pressure doesn't fade. It accumulates. By the 5th day, the bank sent the second notice. Formal language. Clear consequences. If the funds were not returned by the 10th business day, the custodial account would be escalated to legal recovery. Emma was in the kitchen when the email came through. She was working through calculus homework at the table, pencil tapping lightly against the page. I read the message once, then again. Then I closed the laptop. Emma looked up. "Bad news, no." "Then what is it?" "The clock is almost out." She nodded slowly. "Grandma hasn't called. That's because calling would require explaining something." "What that they're wrong?" Emma went back to her homework. The pencil tapping stopped. A few minutes later, she said quietly, "Tyler posted pictures of the car again." "Where Instagram?" She turned the screen toward me. There he was, leaning against the Tesla, arm draped over the hood. Caption underneath, "Earned it." I stared at the word. Earned. Emma watched my face. "Do you want me to report it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because he's about to learn something the hard way." Emma nodded. Then she closed the app. That evening, Denise called. I answered this time. Her voice came through already angry. "You're unbelievable. Hello to you too. You're ruining Tyler's senior year. Tyler will survive. You're jealous." I leaned back in the chair. Of what Mom and Dad finally investing in someone with potential. I almost laughed, but Denise was serious. "You really believe that?" I said. "Of course I do." And Emma silence. Then a shrug in her voice. "She's steady." The same word again. Steady. The polite downgrade. "She's going to be an engineer," I said. Denise snorted. "Let's see if she even gets into a good school." She already did. Denise paused. "What University of Illinois?" Another pause. "That's not MIT." "No," I said. "It's real." Her voice hardened again. "You're still taking the car away. I'm getting my daughter's money back. That money was in the family." "No, it was. It belonged to Emma." Denise's patience snapped. "You think you're morally superior?" "No, I think you're raising a kid who expects the world to revolve around her." That sentence almost made me smile. "Denise," I said quietly, "you just described Tyler." The line went silent. Then she said, "If Mom and Dad have to sell their house over this, they won't." "How do you know?" "Because they have options. Like what, returning the car?" Her voice exploded. "Tyler loves that car, I'm sure he does. You can't expect him to give it up. I expect his grandparents to correct a theft." She went quiet again. Then she said something softer. "You're really going through with this?" "Yes. You're going to destroy this family." I thought about that. Then I answered honestly, "No, you are." She hung up. The next afternoon, Emma came home from school with an unusual expression. Not upset, not amused, just curious. "Mom," she said. "Yes, Tyler got called to the principal's office today." I raised an eyebrow. "Why parking lot problem? What kind of problem?" Emma set her backpack down. "Apparently the school administration asked where a 17-year-old got a $70,000 car." I blinked. "That's interesting." Emma nodded. "They contacted Grandma." "Of course they did. Tyler told everyone it was a reward." "For what?" Emma shrugged. "Being exceptional." I leaned back slowly. "And how did that go?" Emma smiled slightly. "Not great." "What happened?" "The principal asked if it was purchased legally." I let out a breath. The world has a way of asking the same questions from different directions. "Grandma showed up," Emma said. "Was she angry?" "Very." Emma paused. "Not at Tyler. Of course not." She yelled at the principal. "What did the principal say?" Emma smiled again. "He said school policy requires proof of ownership for student vehicles worth over $50,000. I nodded slowly. And Emma picked up a glass of water. They asked whose name is on the title. That part mattered. Because Tesla titles don't list emotional arguments. They list legal owners. And the legal owner of that car was my father. Emma sat down at the table. Grandma looked really nervous. I watched her carefully. How did Tyler react? She shrugged. He said everyone was overreacting. Of course he did. Emma opened her calculus notebook again. Then she glanced up. Mom, yes. Is this what accountability looks like? I nodded. Yes. She thought about that for a moment. Then she said quietly, It's kind of boring. I smiled. That's because real consequences aren't dramatic. What are they? Slow. Across town, my parents were starting to discover exactly how slow those consequences could be. 3 days before the deadline, my father called again. Not angry this time, not confident either. Just tired. "Caroline," he said. "Yes, we need to talk. We've been talking." "No, I mean in person." I considered that for a moment. Then I said, "Come by tomorrow morning." He arrived early, before Emma left for school. She was pouring cereal when the doorbell rang. My father stood on the porch holding a folder, the same brown jacket, the same restless eyes. Emma opened the door. "Hi, Grandpa." Her voice was polite. He nodded. "Morning." She stepped aside and went back to the kitchen. No hug, no extra warmth, just quiet distance. My father watched her for a moment before walking in. The silence in the room felt different now, not tense, measured. He placed the folder on the table. "We're returning the money," he said. Emma's spoon paused halfway to the bowl. I looked at the folder, then at him. All of it. Yes. "Where did it come from?" He hesitated. "We sold the car." Emma set the spoon down slowly. Tyler's Tesla had lasted exactly 8 days. "How did he take that?" I asked. My father's mouth tightened. "Badly. I didn't ask for details. Some lessons don't need witnesses." He slid the folder across the table. Inside were the documents, bank confirmations, transfer receipts, every dollar restored. Emma leaned slightly closer to look. Her eyes moved across the numbers. Then she looked up at me. "Is that everything?" "Yes," I said. My father watched the exchange. His voice lowered. "You could have handled this differently." I met his eyes. "How you could have talked to us." "I did. You went straight to lawyers. I went straight to accountability." He rubbed his temples. "Your mother hasn't slept in days." "That's unfortunate. You sound cold. I sound clear." Emma stood up and rinsed her bowl in the sink. She didn't interrupt, but she was listening. My father looked around the kitchen, at the college brochures, at Emma's laptop, at the neat stack of scholarship applications. "She works hard," he said quietly. "Yes, I underestimated her. You dismissed her." He didn't argue. For the first time in weeks, he looked uncertain. "Denise is furious," he said. "That doesn't surprise me. Tyler's been difficult." I raised an eyebrow. "Difficult how he says the whole family betrayed him." Emma turned from the sink. "Grandpa." He looked at her. "Yes, you mean the car wasn't actually his?" The question landed gently, but the truth inside it was sharp. My father didn't answer right away. Emma nodded slightly. "I thought so." She wiped her hands on a towel and picked up her backpack. "I have school." At the door she paused. Then she said something that surprised all of us. "I hope Tyler figures things out someday." Then she left. The door closed softly behind her. My father watched it for a moment. "She's kinder than most adults," he said. "Yes, she didn't learn that from us." "No." Silence stretched across the kitchen. Finally he said, "Your mother wants to fix things." "Does she?" "Yes. She can start by understanding something. What this wasn't about money." He frowned. "Then what was it about respect?" He sat there for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We failed at that." "Yes." He stood up, tired, older than he had looked the week before. "You're cutting us off," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. For how long, I don't know." "You mean forever?" "Maybe." He took a step toward the door, then stopped. "You know something strange," he said. "What your mother keeps saying, the house feels quiet now." I waited. Tyler used to visit every weekend, and now he's angry. He shook his head slowly. He says we ruined his life. I thought about the Tesla, about the Instagram photo, about the word earned. "He'll survive," I said. My father nodded. but he didn't look convinced. At the door he turned once more. "I hope you're happy." I thought about that question carefully. Then I answered honestly, "I'm peaceful." He studied my face. Then he left. Outside, the neighborhood looked exactly the same. Kids waiting for the school bus, Mrs. Langley watering her roses, ordinary life continuing. Inside the kitchen, I opened the folder again. Every dollar was back where it belonged. Emma's future was intact. But something else had changed permanently. The illusion that family always means protection. That illusion was gone. And it wasn't coming back. The house stayed quiet after my father left. Not the uncomfortable kind of quiet, the kind that settles when a storm has passed and the air finally stops pushing against the windows. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The folder was still open in front of me. Transfer confirmations. Account numbers. Every dollar returned. 187,000. 15 years of careful saving restored in a single line of bank text. Money travels quickly when people are forced to move it. I closed the folder and placed it beside Emma's college brochures. Then I stood and washed the cereal bowl she had left in the sink. Ordinary motions, water running, a dish towel folded neatly on the counter. Peace doesn't arrive with celebration. It arrives quietly when the pressure finally leaves your shoulders. Emma came home late that afternoon. She dropped her backpack on the chair and looked at the table. "The folder's still here," she said. "Yes, so they really paid it back." "They did." She walked closer and opened it. Her eyes scanned the pages carefully. Then she closed it again. "Tyler texted me today. That surprised me." "What did he say?" Emma shrugged. "He said I ruined his life." I leaned against the counter. "How did you respond I didn't?" She pulled out a chair and sat down. "He also said Grandma and Grandpa betrayed him. That must have been confusing." Emma smiled slightly. "He kept saying the car was supposed to be his." The word "supposed" hung in the air for a moment. "Did you explain anything I asked?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't think he's ready to hear it." I nodded. Some lessons require time before they make sense. Emma leaned back in the chair. "Grandma called too." I looked up. "What did she say?" She cried. Emma didn't say it with satisfaction. Just observation. She said the house feels empty now. That can happen. She asked if I'd come visit. And Emma shook her head gently. "Not yet," I understood. Forgiveness is a process. Trust is something else entirely. Emma reached for the stack of brochures and flipped one open. University of Illinois. Engineering program. Tuition estimate circled in blue ink. "You know what's strange," she said. "What I don't feel angry anymore." "That's good." "I feel clear." I smiled slightly. "That's even better." She closed the brochure and looked at me. "Mom?" "Yes. Were you scared about that the money might not come back?" I thought about that honestly. "Yes." She nodded. "But you still did it." "Yes." "Why?" "Because there are moments when a parent has to decide what their child will remember about them." I said it more simply, because some things are worth protecting. Emma absorbed that. Then she stood up and walked to the refrigerator. She pulled a magnet from the door and pinned the Illinois acceptance letter more firmly in place. The paper fluttered slightly. Bright white, full of possibility. Across town, my parents were likely sitting in a quiet house. The Tesla gone. The pride of the family suddenly less interested in visiting. Regret tends to arrive slowly. But when it does, it fills every room. Emma returned to the table. She picked up the folder again. Then she slid it across to me. "You should keep this," she said. "I will." "Not because of the money?" "No, because of what it means." I nodded. Emma picked up her laptop and opened it. Her college essay was still on the screen. resilience and quiet work. She looked up at me. Do you want to hear the last paragraph? I'd love to. She cleared her throat slightly and read. My mother taught me that dignity doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from protecting what matters even when it's uncomfortable. Some people measure success by what they're given. I measure it by what we build. She looked up again. Too dramatic, I shook my head. No, too honest. That's the point. Emma smiled. Then she began typing again. Outside the window, the sun had started to set. Orange light across the neighborhood roofs. Ordinary houses, ordinary lives. The kind of place where people quietly rebuild their futures every day. Before Emma closed her laptop, she looked up once more. Mom, yes, thank you. For what? For choosing me. I walked over and hugged her, not tightly, just enough to remind both of us what we had protected. If you're listening to this story, and you've ever watched someone underestimate your worth, remember something important. Favoritism may feel powerful in the moment, but integrity lasts longer than pride. And sometimes the most important thing a parent can do is stand up quietly and make sure their child's future stays exactly where it belongs.